Right, folks, I'm loving this series. I'm going to every conference in college football, knocking out the top five at every position. And when you go to the SEC, pretty much across the board, except I'm going to say quarterbacks a little bit down this year, but across the board, man, it's 15 or 20 deep, trying to sort through guys to break it down to a top five. So we're going to look at safeties, and we bring in David Waters from Last Word on Sports and also Stephen M. Smith from Touchdown Alabama to help us out in the defensive backfield. So, Stephen M., we're going to tee you up first and see what you got for a top five.
Top five safety list, Mark, goes a little something like this. At number 5, I have Auburn's Rudy Ford. It's because of the fact that the Tigers return Jonathan Jones, it returns Joshua Hosey, but Rudy Ford, the sophomore, the junior this year, is going to be key in that secondary for Muschamp's defense year one. He's got to be the guy that has to keep the secondary glued together, attack the football, make the calls in that back five. So I have Rudy Ford of Auburn at number 5. Coming in at number 4, I know Ole Miss has C.J. Hampton coming back and Trey Elson, but it all starts with their Husky defensive back safety, Tony Connor, the sophomore. Tony Connor, a guy that is intensifying. He wraps up. He sticks his nose in the run game. Great pass defender. And in my opinion, I think he's going to be the emotional leader of that back five where Ole Miss's secondary is concerned because it lost Cody Pruitt, it lost Sinquist Golson to the NFL. So Tony Connor is going to be that emotional leader in Ole Miss back five this season. At number 3, I chime in with Texas A&M's Armani Watts, the sophomore. He will benefit huge this year from John Chavis because Chavis loves to down up blitzes but also play combo coverage behind it, either combo coverage or cover 2, cover 3, deep zone. So with Armani Watts at that safety position, the sophomore, hard hitter, plays the ball well. He loves to funnel the ball in the middle of the field, and that's what I love about Armani Watts. So I have him at number 3. Number 2, Quincy Mauger of Georgia. Reason being, the Bulldogs lost his defensive captain and Damian Swan last year. This will be another year for Jeremy Pruitt, a defensive coordinator, to get that secondary more acclimated into creating turnovers, forcing negative plays. Quincy Mauger, big-time athlete. I've got him at number 2. And at number 1, no argument here, LSU's Jalen Mills, a rock-hard leader in that secondary. Yes, LSU. Defensive coordinator Kevin Steele, defensive line coach Ed Ogeron. It's going to take them at least 2 years to get acclimated into the system, but the players they have to work with this year, John Chavis type players, Jalen Mills, a proven guy. I have him at number 1.
All right, I think our safety group leaves us with a little bit more discussion and debate here. I think we're going to mix it up with maybe 8 to 10 guys. So unlike cornerback where we looked at 6 guys and the top 5 list pretty much matched up, we'll see what David has, and then I'll chime in and we'll see what we've got.
Yeah, I'll start at the bottom. Number 5, I got UGA's Quincy Mauger. I think he made a very nice debut in the first year of Jeremy Pruitt's defense. You know, we kind of thought Georgia's secondary would be the weak link on the team last year on their defense, but they actually turned out to be probably the team's best unit. So, you know, he proved to be UGA's best player in the secondary with 4 interceptions, 51 tackles. He's a very instinctive player, and, you know, that was kind of a surprise, you know, going into last year. Like I said, you know, the year before, the big play doomed Georgia, but Mauger helped, you know, last year where that big play didn't hurt Georgia as much. And number 4, I got Brian Randolph of Tennessee. I think he probably ended up being one of the best all-around players on that Tennessee defense. He made 88 tackles with 2 interceptions, and his defensive touchdown was the only defensive touchdown Tennessee had all year. Very physical player. He's a very integral part of Vols defense and taking that next step to be, you know, one of the SEC's best. I got one of my first 2 LSU guys. I got Jamal Adams, number 3. You know, he's a sophomore. He has a true freshman, 66 tackles, 5 being for a loss. So you know he likes to get dirty. Get in the backfield a lot. Another one that can play, you know, in the box, like I said, and he can cover deep. You know, he doesn't really have a weak link in his game. He's all over the field, but let me take it back. There's one weak link with him, but that was only because he was a freshman. I think he fixes that problem this year with another year of experience. He's got to learn, from being so over aggressive. He took bad angles at times last year. Another year in the system, I think he's good. Then my second LSU guy, I get Jalen Mills number 2. A lot of talk of him, being a first-round pick. Probably for sure will happen. Used to play cornerback. He got converted, to safety. So we know we can cover there. That he's got that part covered. But like I said, he's also another one of these guys that's a great tackle with 62 tackles on the season last year. And number 1, I'll go to Ole Miss with Tony Connor, the junior there. Very athletic, versatile player. Allows him to be a great matchup, on the opposing offense's, skill player. He can help, with the skill players at the safety position as well. He plays in the box, covers well, can make plays blitzing. I think that's probably why I put him number 1, was the plays he makes blitzing and getting in the backfield. 69 tackles with 9 of those for a loss.
All right, guys, we're hearing the same names, but we've got them jumbled up all over the place, and sometimes I jump on you guys for having a tie for 5th place and not making a selection. So we'll call this an honorable mention for Brian Randolph, the redshirt senior out of Tennessee. David talked about him a little bit. 88 tackles coming up from the safety position. He was 3rd on his team and 13th in the SEC in tackles from the safety spot, 1.5 tackles for loss. He had 2 picks. He had 4 the season before. He had a touchdown on a pick 6 as well. He's got a good frame. He was only a 3-star coming out of high school, out of Marietta, Georgia. He's a sure tackler. He's improved. Where he's really taken strides is being that center fielder in certain coverages downfield. So Brian Randolph, kind of an honorable mention. So let's jump into the top 5 here. Like Dominique Sanders, coming off a freshman season. So I expect the big leap from the freshman to the sophomore season. So again, reminding people that we're not just looking at 2014. It's a projection. Who's going to be the best in 2015? And I think Dominique Sanders is going to continue in that Jeremy Pruitt scheme to mature as a player. He's matured physically. He's gaining weight. He's more of a grown man this year. He talked about that during spring practice. He had a fumble return for a touchdown against Mizzou in that big rout for the Bulldogs. 2 picks in the bowl game, so he had 3 total interceptions. And again, he finished off against Louisville with 2 picks in the bowl game and 1.5 tackles for loss. Okay, Jalen Mills, I have a little bit less regarded than you guys do. I know that he's a huge NFL prospect. 38 career starts because he's been doing it a long time there at LSU. He moved from corner to safety in 2014. He did have an off-field issue this past offseason, went to trial for assault a couple months ago. That seems to have cleared up. 62 total tackles, 4 tackles for loss, and a pick for Jalen Mills coming into a senior season with the LSU Tigers. All right, at number 3, I'm going back to Georgia. So between Georgia and LSU, we have 2 loaded secondaries. Quincy Mauger coming into his junior campaign, 51 tackles, 4 picks, 4 pass breakups, very instinctive athlete, 6 feet, 200 pounds, lays the wood. Check out some of his hits on YouTube, specifically against South Carolina and Georgia Tech. He had 2 of the bigger hits in college football last season. At number 2, I love Jamal Adams. David talked about some of the issues he has with being over-aggressive. He had 66 tackles. He only started 2 games. Now, obviously, he was on the field most of the time, but technically only started 2 games last year. Really finished strong against Notre Dame. Had 10 tackles against the Irish in the bowl game. Had 5 tackles for loss. Got into the backfield. 2 interceptions. He had a touchdown as well. Special teams playmaker. I know we're not taking that into consideration, but he's really good at special teams and puts a scare into coverage teams. And Tyrann Mathieu, I know he's biased, but he says that this kid is going to be the best safety in college football in 2015. Then at number 1, I'm a Tony Connor guy as well. I thought Ole Miss had the best secondary in college football last year. I know we remember the Peach Bowl against TCU. I think most of that was not their issue. It was Bo Wallace setting up a bad field position most of the game and the lack of a running game on offense that really did in the defense. This team defensively was stout. 69 tackles, 9 tackles for loss for a safety, and he had a pick. He was the Defensive Player of the Week in the SEC after an Egg Bowl performance in which he had 3 tackles for loss. He lays the wood. Hard hitter, versatile, can drop down and cover slot receivers, supports the run, as we just mentioned here. Big 5-star recruit that has all the talent in the world, the second-rated safety coming out of high school, according to most services, and again, supports the run like a linebacker and comes down and plays the slot receiver like a corner. I got Tony Connor at number 1. All right, gentlemen, anybody off the radar at this point that we can kind of also throw up there as somebody to look out for in 2015? David, we'll start with you. Anybody from the Gators, or elsewhere in the SEC?
Yeah, from Florida. Yeah, I'll go with Keanu Neal. He plays in the box a lot, for the Gators. He's kind of, you could kind of say, they want to fit him into that Cam Chancellor Seattle role, a little bit. They want to bring him close to the box. He's kind of like almost another linebacker from Florida. And the way they're probably going to use him this year with, some guys coming off an injury for the Gators this year at the linebacker position, they'll probably let him stay up in the box a little bit more and help out till, they probably get some of that depth back at linebacker.
All right, Stephen M. Anybody else we need to look out for at safety?
If I had to reflect this to Alabama, the one guy I would look at would be Geno Smith coming into his senior year with the Crimson Tide. And one of the things I love about Geno, he's not afraid to step down in the box and take on running backs 200 pounds plus. But one thing Geno has to improve on is continue reading the eyes of the quarterback and not get burned, not lag behind. Continue to keep your speed with the receivers and read the eyes of the quarterback. Coach Saban and defensive back Coach Mel Tucker have both keyed in on him on that. Superb tackler, Geno Smith, continuing just to read the eyes of the quarterback and stay consistently on your guy.
All right, good stuff. I think the safety position is loaded. And again, Georgia and LSU seem to have supreme defensive backfields. I know David would chime in for the Florida Gators as well. And Alabama looks to make huge improvements and strides in the secondary to really shore up their one somewhat weakness, not from a talent perspective, but from blown coverage perspective and some technique issues coming up in 2015. All right, guys, it's always a good time. It's always a good discussion talking up the SEC, so I appreciate it.